Hello everyone, welcome to the third episode of Tea with Tayaba. So you must be wondering why do we have another H2O team member with us today and who is she? So today with us we have Yumna Wasim and hello Yumna, why don't you introduce yourself here?
Hello everyone, I'm Yumna and I'm from the programs team.
Hi,
Thank you
Yumna.
Yumna.
Welcome to Tea with Taiba.
Thank you.
So today we have something very exciting for you. We are going to tell you what's behind the impact, how Tayyiba has reached 1 million people. What are the behind the scenes here? What is our process? How did we reach so many H2O solutions starting from just one H2O wheel? And what is our process of actually implementing the projects that we take on? So we're very excited to share all of that with you. Stay tuned. This is going to be a very exciting episode. Zoha, why don't you walk us, first of all, hello, and why don't you walk us through the journey of our H2O solution, starting with one H2O wheel and now we're at H2O air. So, why don't you walk us through it?
Thank you, and I'm doing well. How are you? I think it's always the energy that gets the best of us. और हम लोग बिल्कुल सीधा we get into the story of H2O team and how we have evolved from simple tech affordable solutions to a high tech solution H2O air. So I think in less than 4 years, reaching 1 million people and then distributing over 500 million liters of safe water to climate vulnerable communities. It's been a milestone. It's been a milestone for social enterprises setting their stone in Pakistan. So yeah, I think back in 2020, starting with one H2O wheel, when we identified a very stark reality of rural women in rural areas of Pakistan where they would have to 80% would have to travel miles just to access the basic right water. And then they would have to travel miles. It would be from early morning till the sun goes down, and then they would be returning back home. They would be head loading clay pots of over 20 kilograms over their heads. And then that's the pain that travels through their spine. So a lot of physical issues, being left bent for their entire lifetime. So this was everything that we were looking at. We were looking at health issues that come with it, a lot of mental toll that was coming with it, not enough time for any sort of productive activities or being at their household and just having that difficult journey of getting water. And that's where we ideated an H2O wheel. We thought that, like a 40-liter water roller that would be very simple, where the ground bears the weight of water and the wheel. And then you would just have to very simply roll it. So, having different prototypes tested and having the first H2O wheel on ground that would help women. And, because obviously disproportionately they were facing the brunt of it. But then it was very interesting how just because of the gender neutral design of H2O, we started seeing the male members of the household also involved in fetching water. Now this was like a shared responsibility. And it was also saving them 50% of their time, the physical burden reduced by more than 90%. They would have more time to engage into productive activities, and this is by reports that show, these households are now 100% more excited to get into different sort of idea generating activities. So I think that sort of creativity, productivity was very moving. Um, now the wheel is basically a transportation issue that was solved. Now, when we look at transporting the wheel, getting to the source, unfortunately within these rural areas, the water that you're getting is again unsafe, right? That water is not safe for drinking. So now this was the source issue that we had to resolve. So looking at those long distances to go to a tube well, to have like a tug of war to get water out of it, and sadly the water that you're getting is unsafe, which is the leading cause of waterborne diseases in children in the rural areas of Pakistan. So now it was like, how do we come up with a very sustainable solution that would bring in a reliable source of clean water, and would put down the number of waterborne diseases that we're having? And we're very simple. So it was the solar water facilities that we started installing. So harnessing solar energy to generate safe drinking water, having a reliable source, having it just very easy access from the tap, and then you would carry water and then you take it in an H2O wheel. So it's a very beautiful sight of having like a very simple H2O wheel solution, going to the H2O solar, having your water filled and coming back, being happy, having those smiles. We call those H2O smiles with our solutions. Um, Then simultaneously, when you look at the sanitation nexus, we look at, how women in Pakistan do not have access to menstruation resources. So you see, now that women have more time at their hand, we were like, okay, now it's time to engage them in a sort of productive activity, which could also benefit their livelihoods and their fellow. So what we started doing was training and hiring women to make reusable H2O pads, so menstruation pads. They would stitch this, they would have a source of income for them, and then simultaneously they would have it distributed among their fellows. They would have like a very safe, confident journey around menstruation as well. So that's how we first created an ecosystem. We had an integrated system. You're carrying it with an H2O wheel, you come, you get water, you have more time, you engage in a productive activity, and you have like a safe health along with an access to safe water. Now, when it comes to, slightly more towards an urban water crisis, we're looking at Pakistan getting completely water scarce by 2030. It's time that we start resorting towards sustainable, towards green technology. So that's where H2O Air comes into play. A high-tech yet a very simple and affordable technology, a very normal looking like dispenser but waterless, giving you free water from the air, enhancing that humidity to generate water for you. So it's been a journey of exploring different sort of tech, different sort of solutions that are very relatable to the audience that we're serving to, and then they're affordable, and then they have an element of innovation into place so that we can, gather a bigger impact together. So like a ripple impact. So yes, that's been a story. I've tried to put it very briefly together, but I still think it went long. We always get into that energy, into that zone. But yeah, that's been the H2O story very briefly.
Thank you for sharing that, Zoha. It's honestly, it's a beautiful story. And it's such a. I'm so glad that we have reached a very holistic framework of water accessibility, where we're making sure that every aspect of it is covered, and hopefully this is how we'll reach 25 million by 2030. So now we have Yumna with us, and Yumna is a programs officer. She handles all the project implementation. So Yumna, why don't you just walk us through how where do we start with the needs assessment, and then after the implementation, and what happens after the implementation? How do we make sure that the impact that we're promising or that we're claiming is actually happening?
So, thank you. At Tayaba, we follow three-tier monitoring and evaluation system. First is pre-needs and needs assessment, where we identify areas of intervention, like the areas that are challenged climate and are climate vulnerable. So we do so by onboarding implementation partners. They do the need assessment process for us. They find the eligible households. We do so. We now have shifted to a digital toolbox where they collect data so that we can track the data live. And then comes the process monitoring. After finding the eligible households, we send them the solutions, the aid provision, the H2 solutions, and the funding for it, like for H2 solar and for wheels, we dispatch those wheels in that dedicated area. So for process monitoring, we have they distribute those H2 wheels, those H2 solutions in phases, so that the beneficiaries not only get solutions but also get knowledge, that how would they use those solutions and get benefited in their lives, improve their lives. That we saw that women were carrying heavy pots, as Zoha mentioned. So we tell them through community sensitization session that how will they use H2 wheels and make their lives easier. And if we distribute H2 hygiene kits, we tell them that how they can reuse those H2O pads and H2O soaps, and how they can improve their hygiene and send their children to school who were previously engaged in water hauling. So in the process monitoring, we have community sensitization programs that is held through our partners as well, and sometimes we H2O teams do that if the area is an RE, and it's really empowering to see the beneficiaries smiling and carrying those solutions with smiles, with open hearts. And then comes the impact evaluation. So as we bring transparency and accountability in our process, we ensure it by uh, we ensure it by doing spot checks. That we conduct sometimes telephonic spot checks and sometimes field visits. We regularly do field visits to ensure that our on-ground partners are uh, distributing and uh, translating the impact we want to create in those communities. So in this process, that process is really close to my heart. I recently visited a community where I engaged with a woman beneficiary who was around 70 years of age, and she was a grandmother, and she was mentioning that um, no none of her kids helped her in water hauling, and she used to walk for miles for 10 years. Like she caught it 10 years because she remembered the struggle. And she mentioned that she used to walk miles for bringing water for her household. And now she has a H2O swallow water facility right in front of her home. And she was mentioning that how her neighbors are like envious of her, that she has the facility closer to her home, and she was very happy. She was mentioning that she used to get ill quite frequently because of consuming unsafe water, and now due to swallow water facility, she has access to clean water near to her home. And on that day we distributed H2O wheels as well. So her happiness increased, and her daughter-in-law is also engaged in the conversation, saying that their hair got like damaged due to the water in that area is very unsafe and contaminated. So they were very happy. So in that phase, in the third phase, we ensure the transparency and accountability of the aid provision. So that is really empowering and nurturing for me as well.
Thank you so much, Yumna, for sharing that. That's such a beautiful story, and it's such it's always so nice to hear that we're actually able to create the impact that we want to create. And you are always, you're connected with on the ground. You're connected with the beneficiaries, and that's thank you so much for sharing that. That's very special. So why don't we, since we have the H2O team here, why don't we all just share like a little bit about our own personal experience with Tayaba, and like just maybe one thing that we have learned, one thing that that really stayed with us during this our time with Tayaba and working here and everything. So why don't you start?
I definitely want to connect this with what Yumna said. I think one of the most, energetic part for all of us is when we want to hear from what's happening on the ground, right? We want to see what impact it's making. So when we're at the back end, we're like, okay, this project has been executed. I would love to see pictures. I would love to see videos. And then every time those are so beautiful pictures, those so beautiful videos with everyone maybe smiling, maybe just having water in their hands and feeling that that gratefulness within themselves, and then simultaneously that brings a lot of sense of gratitude from our end as well, that with every sort of resource or the small step that we're putting in, we're able to reach these communities and then have empowering stories and have these stories as Yumna just shared. So I think just connecting with that sense of empowerment and that sense of happiness is what keeps me moving and would be one of the most beautiful memories that I've had here.
Thank you for sharing that, Zoha. That's true. That's, I think,
Vishal,
for
I
all
think
of us.
after this, I'll move it directly to you. Yeah, I would love to hear what your memory has been. You've worked with Taiba in two different like cohorts. How has it been? What do you recall, and how do you connect the two journeys as well?
So, what Zoha is talking about is I used to work with Tayaba in 2022, and now I have recently rejoined. And honestly, back then, as we know, 2022 floods were going on, and it was a very like stressful time for us. But also, we're coming up with new solutions. That's actually when we came up with H2O pads and H2O toilets as well. That was implemented during the flood campaign. So I think it felt like it was very disheartening to see Pakistan like that, where it felt empowering, and it felt like some sort of content that at least we're somehow contributing to the impact, and somehow we're making some lives at least better in some way. And I think, yeah, that was a very that was like a big part of that journey. And now that I'm here, I'm so happy to see the growth. Now that we have H2O Air, we are like moving very fast. I think we're growing exponentially, and that's amazing to see. And I really do believe that if we keep up with the pace, we will reach 25 million by 2030. And a big part for me is to also communicate what's happening and what we're doing with our audience, because they're a part of this journey, they contribute to this journey, they support us. So I'm always very excited whenever we get the media, whenever we get any information. I'm very excited to just like through like through tea with Tayaba or through trivia with Tayaba, just engage with the audience, share our media with them, share our impact with them. And yeah, that's something that's very important to me. So yeah, what? Why don't you share what's the one part of your journey that's very important to you? That what's one thing that has stuck with you working with Tayaba?
It is not one thing, but I would mention obviously the primary one. The one memory that is still associated with me is our experience at Brahmanabad, which is when we think of urban areas, we ignore the suburbs and the villages surrounding those areas. So Lahore, can we even imagine that people in Lahore are facing such issues? That the basic human right, water, we take for granted in our everyday lives because we have the easy access to it. Uh, those people were actually struggling to transport water and to access the safe water for drinking for their children, and how their daily life activities were uh, hindered due to unavailability of safe water, and how they were engaging their children like of 5 or 6 years of age in water hauling. So we implemented the program, it's a wash program there ourselves. Like the programs team went there and distributed the H2 solutions. So, and I did the community sensitization program that really like felt me connected with them to know their stories and to empower them with how they can treat the water to make it safe. Like they were literally unaware of the simple water treatment practices. They weren't even boiling the water to ensure its quality, its safety. So that is really stuck with me. And also we distributed the hygiene kits as well. So the women were very happy receiving those H2 reusable H2O pads. And the other memory, there are a lot, but when it comes to my personal experience, I would say that this experience has really empowered me and is empowering me as a human, as a woman, coming from a like middle income background, and then where I always face stigmatization due to my social sciences academic background. And but this platform really gave me a space to feel empowered, feel nurtured, and I grew with it. And I'm really uh, grateful for the team and for this space where I feel like home. And other heartwarming part is that how I am able to connect with those on ground beneficiaries, the people struggling for such basic human rights. So that's
Thank you for sharing that, Yumna, and that's so true. I think we do all. This is our H2 home, and this is home to all of us. This has contributed a lot to our own lives as well, and we're happy to contribute to others' lives, and hopefully as well. And together as a team, as an H2O team, we are working towards our mission, and I'm very hopeful that we will achieve that. Yes, so thank you everyone for tuning in for this episode. We really do hope that you enjoyed our discussion, our journey of Tayaba and H2O team. So thank you for joining. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.